Have you ever walked into a room, sat down, smiled, laughed at the right moments, and still left feeling like you betrayed yourself somehow, like you played the game perfectly, but the game wasn't yours? That feeling right there, that's not anxiety. That's not overthinking. That's your gut telling you that you've been making yourself smaller for a long time, and it has to stop. I want to tell you something I've never really said out loud before. When I was 23, I got my first real job offer. Corporate, clean office, good salary, the kind of thing my family would brag about at Christmas dinner. And I remember sitting in the car park on my first day, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the building, and something in my chest said, "This isn't it. Not the job, not the company, but the version of me I was about to perform in there." I went in anyway. I spent 4 years in that place, 4 years nodding in meetings I disagreed with, 4 years swallowing opinions that never made it past my throat, 4 years wearing a personality like a uniform, take it on in the morning, peel it off at night, and nobody warned me. Nobody sat me down and said, "Hey, the longer you pretend to be someone you're not, the harder it gets to remember who you actually are." I wish someone had told me that, because by the time I left, I didn't even know what I liked anymore, what I stood for, what kind of person I was when no one was watching. I had to rebuild that from scratch. And if you're somewhere in the middle of that same kind of disappearing act right now, this is for you. Now, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a life coach with a certificate on my wall. What I am is someone who spent years studying human behavior, reading obsessively, talking to people across every kind of background, watching what separates the people who seem genuinely at peace from the people who look successful but feel hollow. And I've made enough mistakes personally to know the difference between advice that sounds good and advice that actually works when life gets messy. So I want to share some things with you today, not theories, real patterns, real turning points. 5 things I had to learn, slowly, painfully, sometimes embarrassingly, about reclaiming who you are when the world has spent a long time convincing you to be someone else. Lesson 1. Approval is a hunger that never gets full. Here's the thing about people-pleasing that nobody talks about honestly. It starts out looking like kindness. I was the person who always said yes, always showed up, always made sure everyone else was comfortable before I even checked in with myself, and people loved me for it. They really did. But here's what I noticed after a while. The more I gave, the more was expected, not out of cruelty, and most of the time people don't even realize they're doing it. They just grow accustomed to a version of you that has no edges, no limits, no inconvenient needs. I remember a specific evening. I'd driven 40 minutes to help a friend move furniture on a day I had a splitting headache and a deadline hanging over my head. I didn't mention either of those things. I just showed up, helped, smiled, drove home, and I sat in my car outside my house and felt nothing. Not proud. Not good, just empty, because I hadn't been kind that day. I'd been afraid that if I said, "Hey, I can't today," something would break, something would shift. They'd think less of me. The truth is this: people who only value you when you're convenient don't actually value you. They value the function you perform, and you are not a function. So start there. Start noticing the difference between giving from a full place because you genuinely want to versus giving from fear, from guilt, from that quiet dread of being thought of as difficult. You're allowed to be a little difficult. That's just called having a self. Lesson 2. The stories you tell yourself become the life you live. I had a story. It went like this: I'm not the type of person who gets the big things. I don't know exactly when it started. Somewhere in childhood, I think, watching opportunities land in other people's laps and quietly concluding that I must be missing whatever gene made that happen for them. So I aimed small. applied for things I was overqualified for, talked myself out of conversations I was afraid to start, sat in the back of the room when I could have been at the table. And you know what the brutal irony of a limiting story is? It proves itself right every time. Because when you believe you're not the type of person who gets things, you stop reaching. And when you stop reaching, you stop getting things. And then you go, see, I knew it. It's a closed loop, a trap built entirely out of your own narration. The day I started to break out of it wasn't dramatic. No lightning bolt, no mentor appearing with wisdom. I just caught myself mid-thought one afternoon. I was about to talk myself out of sending an email to someone I admired, a person whose work had influenced me for years, and I heard the story playing in my head like background noise. Who are you to reach out? What would you even say? They won't reply. And I thought, wait, when did I agree to let that voice make decisions for me? I sent the email. They replied within 2 days. That conversation changed the direction of the next 3 years of my life. I'm not saying every risk pays off like that. They don't. But the story has to be interrogated. Because most of the time, the ceiling you're living under was built by a version of you that was scared, young, and didn't have the information you have now. Update the story, or at least stop letting the old one run unchecked. Lesson 3. Silence is not the same as peace. This one took me an embarrassingly long time. I thought I was a calm person. I thought the fact that I rarely exploded, rarely confronted, rarely made things awkward, I thought that was emotional maturity. It wasn't. It was avoidance in a very convincing disguise. Because underneath all that surface-level calm, things were piling up. Resentments I'd never voiced. Disappointments I'd swallowed, needs I'd convinced myself didn't matter enough to mention. And the thing about unexpressed things is they don't disappear. They just change shape. They come out sideways, as irritability over small things, as distance you can't quite explain, as a low hum of dissatisfaction that follows you around and you can't locate its source. I had a friendship, genuinely one of the closest I'd ever had, that quietly fell apart over about 18 months because neither of us said the one honest thing we needed to say to each other. We were both protecting the friendship by not talking about what was fracturing it, and in the end, the silence did more damage than the conversation ever could have. I wish I'd known this earlier. Real peace isn't the absence of tension. It's the ability to move through tension without losing yourself in it. Saying the honest thing, gently, humanly, without cruelty, is not the same as starting a fight. Sometimes it's the only way to keep something alive. Lesson 4. Comparison is not motivation. It's a slow leak. Social media didn't invent comparison, but it gave it an algorithm and put it in your pocket. I remember a specific period in my late 20s. I was rebuilding a lot of things: career, confidence, sense of direction. And I was on my phone constantly, watching people I'd gone to school with announce milestones, achievements, highlight after highlight. And I told myself I was just staying informed, staying connected. But what I was actually doing was measuring, constantly, scoring myself against a moving target made up of other people's curated best moments. And here's the cruelest part of comparison. It doesn't feel like self-destruction while you're in it. It feels like motivation. It feels like you're just assessing where you are. But you're not assessing, you're eroding. Because the person you're comparing yourself to is showing you the version they want the world to see, not the doubt, not the cost, not the parts that aren't working yet. You're comparing your internal reality to their external highlight. That's never going to end anywhere good. The shift for me was small but significant. I stopped asking, why haven't I done what they've done? And started asking, what am I actually building, and does it matter to me? Those are completely different questions. One leads to spiral, the other leads somewhere. Your life is not a race someone else designed. You don't have to be winning at their version of it. Lesson 5. The version of you that needed saving deserved better, and so do you now. This is the one I want to sit in for a moment, because I think a lot of us are carrying around a younger version of ourselves who never got the care they needed, never got told the right things, never got permission to just be messy, uncertain, figuring it out. And we spent years compensating for that. Building armor, building performance, building a version of ourselves that was acceptable, functional, successful looking, so that nobody could see the kid underneath who still wasn't sure if they were enough. I had a period in my early 30s where I achieved most of the external things I thought I wanted. And instead of feeling satisfied, I felt a grief I couldn't name. It took me a long time to understand what that grief was. It was for the years I spent running from myself. For all the mornings I woke up and the first thing I did was check how other people were doing instead of asking how I was doing. For every room I made myself smaller in. For every dream I postponed because the timing wasn't right. And the timing was never going to be right. I was just scared. Nobody warned me that you can build exactly the life you thought you wanted and still feel like something essential is missing if that life wasn't actually yours. But here's the part I want you to hold on to. It's not too late to course correct. Not for you, not at whatever age you are, whatever chapter you're in, whatever ground you feel like you've lost. The fact that you're here, listening, asking these questions, that's not small. A lot of people never get to the asking part. They just keep running. You've already started. The ending. I want to be real with you about where I am right now, too. I've had some hard months lately, some plans that didn't land the way I hoped. Some mornings where the motivation that usually comes easily just wasn't there. And I know this channel has been a bit quieter recently because of that. Some of you have noticed, some of you have reached out, and honestly, your messages have been the thing that got me back to this chair. So thank you, for real. I'm not going to pretend I have it all figured out. I don't. I'm somewhere in the middle of my own story, same as you, but I'm here, and I'm going to keep showing up. For this, for you, for the conversations that actually matter. I'll be posting more regularly again now, and I hope you'll stick around, not because I have all the answers, but because maybe we're better at finding them together. If something in here landed for you, I'd genuinely love to know which part. Drop it in the comments, not for the algorithm, just because I read every single one, and your words remind me why I do this. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do, because there's a lot more of this coming. Take care of yourself this week. I mean that. Bye for now.